What is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. We've got Open Beta 5 update notes. Bari's dropping today. We've got a few aspects that we've already gone over. We're going to be focusing mostly on balance, touching on a little bit on Bari if there are any actual changes that are happening to her, which I don't expect. Usually they don't do a ton of changes, but let's just jump right in. Open Beta 5 update notes. New God Bari. Does not look like they added any changes to her. New cosmetics, if you guys are interested in these. Silent Wish Aladdin. That's a clean skin. Steel Samurai Susano. Pool Party Jingwei. Vizier Egbert Beakington Ra. Count Archer Cupid. Count Charmer Aphrodite. Supernova Pele. Ninja Vanish. A few more cosmetics. HUD editor has been added, which is phenomenal. HUD editor is back, which is so exciting. Music packs are back. If you guys like the music from Smite 1, there's, I think, 68 that you can now bring into Smite 2. Interesting. Conquest Gold pacing changes. Item acquisition throughout the match has been adjusted so that players can build a tier 3 item every 5 minutes on average. Previously, this timing would get shorter as the match went on due to the higher gold scaling. The biggest point of this is the 3k pots later in the game are slower, which is really, really good. Base gold reduced by 2 gold. Base gold scaling reduced from 0.5 to 0.25. 2 gold, 0.5 to 0.25. 1.5 to 1. Jungle camps are also reduced by 1. Scorpions reduced by 4. Gold scaling reduced from 1.5 to 0.5. Base gold reward for players' kills increased again. And the inferior multiplier increased from 0.1 to 0.25. Okay. So yeah, this will slow down how fast you'll get your items. You'll still get that first item around the 5-minute mark, but that second one will now be about 10-minute. A lot of times you finished, you got full build by like 25 minutes. Sometimes if you were having a bad game, it would be like 30, but you could very easily have full build by 25 minutes. So I think that is a very good change. Brutes. The goal of the Brutes is to assist players with sieging into a structure in the mid late game. Currently, a mage usually has enough power to clear a wave by themselves at a safe distance. Now the attacking team will have the opportunity to push minions into a structure. Interesting. A Brute will replace a melee minion in the waves at set intervals throughout the match. 7, 15, and 23. For example, at the 7-minute mark, the wave will now be made up of 1 Brute, 2 melee, and 3 ranged minions. Brutes spawn with an anti-magic shield, making them more resilient to magical damage. They gain 5% magical damage reduction every 3 minutes, capped at 50%. Magical enhance will not be affected by the reduction and are instead reduced by the normal amount. Okay. Brutes have more health power than a normal minion. Brutes will use the champion minion model, also known as the Warhorn minion. Due to this change, minions affected by the Warhorn buff will no longer change character models. Minion versus minion TTK. Problem with minions piling up and snowballing into large waves and taking out structures by themselves without any player being there to help the snowball away. These changes are an attempt to ensure that the waves move up and down lanes at a more predictable pace if left alone. You could still manipulate wave, like if you want. Most of the time, if you want to start stacking up waves, you kill those 3 archers. You'll have 2 waves usually grouping. If you actually are like planning around that. This is just nobody's touching the waves at all. Sometimes the waves just get absolutely massive, which is probably a good change. Minions will now do a consistent amount of damage to each other at all points throughout the match. Previously, minions would struggle to clear each other as the match progressed due to their increased protections. This should help the amount of minion waves snowballing without player assistance. Interesting. Okay. Minion versus minion targeting will now target minotaurs. Melee and ranged minions will now attempt to prioritize ranged minions who are standing near the melee line formation. Fire minion bonus gold revert. Fire minions no longer grant bonus gold when slain. Good. Penetration increases on structures. Tier 1's are now up to 20% instead of 10%. Tier 2 is from 20 to 30, and the Phoenix is now 30 back up to 40. Minion counter. Small counter under the structure's objective health bar displays how many friendly minions are near the enemy's tower. Okay. The owner of the Obsidian Dagger will now have the effect applied to their nameplate, which is... It looks good. I don't know if it shows it. It doesn't, but it looks good. Can now destroy the door at the Fire Giant's pit. Can now be placed farther. It has a throw animation. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Fountain is also going to be recovering health and mana every 0.2 instead of every 1 second. More consistent is all. Conquest art changes. Tower base rings have been updated. Very easy to tell where the tower line is now. It looks very good. If you're interested in Joust, the Titan has been increased. Titan health has been increased. God balance. Achilles combat dodge. His third ability has been nerfed. This is hitting both aspect and jungle Achilles. So this is a good nerf where I think Achilles was a little overperforming, mostly in jungle. So hitting the ability that's most important in jungle, I think is a good hit. Bacchus buff. Drunkometer. Increased protection buffs while tipsy from 5% to 6%. Increased protection buffs while smash from 10% to 12%. It's a good change, but I don't think it helps Bacchus too much. Maybe solo Bacchus, you could play with this. The issue with support Bacchus is you don't get enough protections to actually get like a massive increase with this because supports are always behind. And Bacchus can't really clear jungle, so he's not, snowballing if he gets a lead. It's still a nice change, but I don't think it does too much. Bologna nerf, bludgeon, increase the slam damage, or decreased. That's a weird thing to nerf. That is a very weird thing to nerf. Because this is like the one reason you would take the non-aspect. And now there's kind of no reason to. Now you're basically just going to be taking the aspect because bludgeon is even worse. The heal scaling is reduced from 7% protections to 5%, which is probably good. I think Scourge is healing you a little bit too much. Chalk buff. His rain dance is also getting 2 base at every level, which is massive for the early game. Your 1-3, 1-2, whatever it is, your first 3 levels will now be stronger just because of how this works. An extra 2 health. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you kind of can just spam this and be back to full health. And then the increased scaling gets from 4% to 5%. And I don't know entirely how the aspect scales with this. I don't know if the entire aspect is just flip this and then it's damage. But it is something along the lines of that. So this is an increase to also Chalk's aspect. Fenrir shift brutalized, decreased protections while channeling from 5 to 25 plus 2 per level to 5 to 17 plus 2 per level. It's a good nerf. I think it is still too strong, though. And increase the protections while channeling and for the additional buff duration on the aspect. So the aspect get more protections. Non-aspect is going down in protections. I mean, this is still like plus 2 per level. 57 is still insane. I mean, here you're getting 85, which is kind of crazy. But I think if they want Fenrir 3 to proc item effects like Golden Blade, Braggies, Kins, I think this has to be like a negligible amount of protections. Hekate nerf. Spell leader increase the cooldown from 9 to 12 seconds. That's the aspect, which is a good change, I think. I think this was mostly an arena problem, but I think it is still a good change. Hercules nerf. Mitigate wounds. Ability 3. Decrease the protections from 20 to 40 is now 55 to 25 plus 15 is for each stat, meaning if you have 100 physical and 50 magical, you'd get 25. That is a really good change. That is a really, really good change. This is a... It's I think this per plus 15% of your protections from items is still maybe a little too high. Maybe it should be 10%, because most of the time, even when you're playing him in jungle, you're going to be getting about 100 protections of each. I think it's a good change, though, because it helps him a lot in solo lane, which a lot of people complain is his worst role. Like support and jungle Herc, broken. Solo Herc, not very good. So I kind of like this. Khepri shift. This is to shift Khepri non-aspect to be better and aspect to be slightly worse. Decrease the cooldown on aspect solar flare. Ability 3. Nice little buff a second off. Aspect of laceration, his 1 is losing 5% int and also losing 1% of his max HP, which is, this is like the important part because you're building a lot of HP on Khepri with the aspect. So that's a pretty decent nerf. Mordred shift. So Mordred is getting a big change across the board. Shoulder charge rework. Aspect of rage has been integrated into the base kit. This ability no longer knocks up any gods, but passes through them, dealing damage. This ability cooldown energy is set on damaging an enemy god with another ability. The damage is also decreased. It used to be 30 plus 8 per level. It's now going to be 15 plus 4 per level. Blood Rage, the second ability. The debuff count is increasing by 1. The base attack speed is decreased by 10%. But gaining Blood Rage stacks now also provides 5% increased attack speed per stack. The attack speed buff always ends when Blood Rage movement speed buff falls off. Hitting enemy gods with the initial fire now applies 2 stacks of the protection debuff to the enemies and 2 stacks of the buff to Mordred. This ability has been debuffing enemy magical protection, which is not intended. Okay, so it's only physical, it's not magical. Okay. Wow, a lot of extra int on the 3. And then pursue the weak. Your character rotation is no longer locked on the pre-fire this ability. Oh, so it's like Danzaburo. So you could like charge it like this and then spin before actually taking off, which is a really big change to that. This ability now provides a heal each time an enemy god is hit. Wow. Massive, massive Mordred buffs. Insane. Basic attacks while Blood Rage is active no longer provides bonus protections or attack speed, but instead you're non-ultimate and non... Okay, so this is the aspect. This one we've already talked about. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's really good. Nemesis buff, her 1 gets an extra 10% strength. Nice little buff. Rama Shift, infinite arrows. The buff duration lasts 1 more second. Astral Barrage gets 10% more strength scaling, but the aspect loses a little bit of attack speed. So they think, I guess, Rama's aspect is just way better than base Rama, and you're just building aspect a lot, which I think is kind of true. So I think that's a good shift. Sobek buff to his aspect. You now get an extra 25% int scaling on it, and the ability also heals, his 3 also heals for the full amount when the aspect is enabled. Good changes to Sobek. Thanatos is getting a shift. Harvester of Souls, the passive, is increasing the heal from killing gods from 20% of their HP to 25%, and increase the heal from killing minions from 7% of their HP to 8 point... Wait, that's an increase. So Thanatos is getting a pretty nice heal buff. And Death Scythe is also doing an extra 10% strength scaling, which is very nice. And the aspect is also eating a pretty meaty nerf. 3.5% of your max health to 2.5 and 0.75% of your max health, or 0.75% of your max HP heal down to 0.5%. Wow. Oh, Thor's just getting a buff. Thor is the best character in the game. Yeah, okay. The one thing keeping Thor balanced was that the Anvil of Dawn animation visual was way too long, but his aspect is broken right now, and now it's going to be hard to juke Thor ult. Okay, good to know. Thor's broken. Vulcan buff, Master Craftsman, one of his mods, 10 to 20 CDR. This is the CDR, you only get it when your passive is active, which is you're never getting it on your first ability, no matter what. So you can get it on your second, and then from there on, as long as you're keeping the fight going. I think this is a pretty good buff to efficiency mod, and there's actually a reason to take it. And then lastly, Thermal mod is getting an extra 10% int scaling, which is crazy. And also Zeus is getting an extra 10% int on his Chain Lightning. Wow. Erendite, we've already gone over Erendite. I'm not going to cover that again. Video yesterday, if you're curious about that. Both elixirs are getting pretty massive nerfs. About a third of their power cut off. That's insane. They still stack, but that is a big, big nerf. It's no longer, I'm getting my 3k pot, I'm going to be insanely strong. It's, I'm going to get my 3k pot and be stronger, which is probably good. Spectral getting a buff, 5% on the attack speed and critical strike debuff. Void is now going down to 10%. Both options. Stone of Binding is losing 5 protection debuff. It's now going to be 10 instead of 15. It's also gaining 5 protections of both magical and physical. Dev's Gloves is now getting 55. Okay, so Dev's Gloves is back to being the Hunter build. It's 100% going to be Dev's. Dev's is already a fine item. It was fine. It is now going to be the Hunter item build. 100%. Heartseeker buff is gaining 5 strength. Hydras is gaining 5 strength. I think these are good. I think assassins are a tiny bit weak, so I think these are good changes. And then Magi's is getting an increase in its cooldown, and it's also an increase in its cost. Honestly, this is a pretty awesome patch. Like, I'm a big fan of it. Bari's sick. The items are changing well. The gold changing well. I'm a big fan of this patch. I'm very excited to play it. I hope you guys are also. Let me know down below, what are you guys most curious to play around with? Mordred's got to be on that list for sure. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys like the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.